Our Tuesday night Bible study. Um, we come together on Tuesday nights. We have been learning a lot about discipleship, and this week, to go along with our discipleship, we have a special guest with us. I had never done this before, but the Bible tells us to go into all the world, preach the gospel, baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, teach them to observe everything which I commanded them. And the church has failed in a lot of areas, and that's the reason why we're doing so much with discipleship. So tonight, we're going to listen to someone who for 16 years was homeless. And we're going to learn from that perspective how to minister effectively to the homeless society, to homeless people. Years ago, I did a little seminar, and I used to do things, we called it rock ministry, reaching our city's kids. And I would put on little conferences and things like that, teaching people how to reach the kids in their city. And it was very effective, and we reached a lot of kids. But tonight, we're going to reach a different population. And maybe you've heard a lot of stuff before about how to reach the homeless population and how to minister to them. Maybe you're doing a very good job about that. But there's always things that we can learn when it comes to ministering to people. So tonight we have with us Rick Harris, and Rick has meant a whole lot to me and my family over the past while. And Rick has got some incredible stories that he's going to share with us and different things like that. And we're just going to learn tonight from someone who has been on the other side for a long time and has made a comeback, because we're all about making a comeback. We're overcomers. Amen?
Amen.
And Rick is an overcomer, and he's still working on stuff. I'm doing this Facebook Live. We typically do not do our Bible studies Facebook Live, but tonight we are, because I know that there's some people that's interested in learning about homeless and how to do homeless ministry. And this will be the last night that Rick is with us, because Friday he's starting a new chapter in his life. So if you would, give Rick a hand as he comes. He's a little nervous, but that's okay. Go ahead, Rick.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Like Shane said, my name is Rick Harris. I'm 35 years old. I'm from New Hampshire. The last place I lived in New Hampshire was a little town called Pittsfield. I've bounced around though all my life, Washington State to New Mexico, all the way to Missouri and up to New Hampshire, now down here in South Carolina. As Shane said, I was homeless for 16 years, living that life, trying to get out of it, finally finding freedom from that, moving forward in my life. I started my adult life in the Army National Guard, with the 2nd to 197th Field Artillery. I did that for about 5 years. That was actually where I started to drink. I was 17 years old. I didn't actually touch drugs until I was about 20 years old. But that drug addiction kind of grew as I went through college, as I experimented with drugs. I was already homeless at that point when I started college. Kind of went to college just to find a place to live for a short time while I tried to figure things out. Didn't work very well for me. After I got out of college, I ended up on the streets, trying to figure out day-to-day life, how to survive out there on the street. My first night actually sleeping outside was sleeping under a construction big dump truck, because I figured if they started the truck in the morning, it'd be a good alarm clock. So that's where I slept that night. I moved cities. That was in Manchester, New Hampshire. I ended up going to Nashua, where I spent most of my homeless experience. My first soup kitchen I went to, it took me about 6 months to actually go to a soup kitchen. I was kind of ashamed of my homelessness. I was ashamed of needing help. I figured I could do this on my own. So after about 6 months of eating out of trash cans, starving 90% of the time, I finally went to that soup kitchen. My experience though at that soup kitchen was not very good. It was a inhumane situation. Um, the soup kitchen itself wasn't very big, but it sat 60 people. We were sitting elbow to elbow. It was hot. It stank. The floor was falling apart. Sometimes walking in that line to get food, you'd worry that you'd fall through the floor itself. But because this hot, stinky, close quarters, it caused an environment for a lot of fights, especially with all the drug addicts, the drunks that came through, myself included. My friend Ashley, she had dumped a cup of coffee on me one day. That was not too fun. I ended up picking a fight with the guy behind me, even though it wasn't his fault. They had us line up before mealtime. Sometimes we'd need to be there an hour early just to get a good spot in line. Whether it was rain or shine, it didn't matter. But those hot and extremely cold days out there added more to the violence than you could imagine. After about 10 years on the street, I was despairing enough and in enough depression. I was to the point of killing myself. That day, the first day that I thought of suicide, I grabbed a rope. I was on my way to go hang myself off the local bridge. But as I was walking, I found this little silver bag, zip bag, sitting on the sidewalk. I was curious as to what it was, so I grabbed it. Because as being homeless, you tend to scavenge things off the ground, and anything interesting, you tend to pick it up. In this bag was a bracelet that said, "Fall 7 times, get up 8." And there was a note in it saying, along the lines of, "I'm not lost, I'm meant for you." And at the bottom it said, "You are loved." I dropped that rope that day, and I walked away. Another time I intentionally overdosed. Suicide for over 50% of homeless is a reality. It's a constant thought, or folks have attempted it. Now, for misconceptions of why many people are homeless, is that they're lazy, that they just want to live this way, that they don't want to get jobs. That is not 100% a reality. There are folks out there that would rather live this way, but a lot of it has to do with being stuck in the cycle of homelessness. And to get a job while you're homeless is extremely hard. You're dirty, you stink, you have no way to wash yourself. And then there's also the added problem of all your belongings. Most of us carried our belongings on our back every day. We're talking 50 to 100 pounds toting around town. And most employers really don't want you to store your stuff there behind their buildings or even in their buildings. So what are you supposed to do with your belongings? And theft was a big problem being out on the street. Other homeless folks coming to steal your belongings. I've had tennis shoes stolen. I've had phones stolen. I've had clothing stolen to the point I had nothing to wear. I've even seen a homeless man in one of the shelters where you would figure you'd be safe and have his shoes stolen right off of his feet as he was sleeping. Another big misconception is that the homeless are dangerous, that they're just out to hurt you. I've had a time or two where I've gone to ask somebody the time and approached them to ask them what time it is because I was trying to get to a doctor's appointment or a job interview. And as I was trying to get the words out, what time is it? They put up their hands, no, I don't have anything for you, and sent me on my way without even bothering to find out what I needed or what I was trying to ask. Not everybody out there, but a lot of the homeless are looked at like they don't want to accept help. That's not 100% the truth because the homeless are afraid to tell their stories or to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable out on the street is extremely dangerous. If you tell somebody too much about yourself, that's something they can use against you. So you don't really want to tell too many people, even to the point of your own name. Out on the street, I was known as Cricket. Nobody knows my actual name out on the street because it was dangerous to give out my name. A lot of homeless are looked at like they don't want to fix their situation. Again, that's just because the homeless are stuck in the cycle of homelessness, and it's hard to get out of it. A lot of people do want to fix their situation, but they just don't know how to, and they don't know how to go about it. It becomes too stressful while you're trying to survive day to day, while you're trying to find food, while you're, for the drug addicts, you're trying to get your drugs for the day so you can be well for the day, so that you feel okay enough to survive that day. Homeless generally are looked at as all drug addicts, and that's not the case. I met quite a few folks that weren't drug addicts on the street. There was one woman that her house burned down around her and she almost died in the house. She wasn't a drug addict, she didn't have a mental illness, but she was afraid to live indoors. She could not stand the idea of being behind a closed door where she might die. A lot of people look at the homeless like they have no responsibilities. Some homeless have families that they're trying to care for. There is responsibility to yourself, responsibility to your families out there. A lot of homeless are looked at as thieves. Most can and are thieves, but a lot aren't. They're not out there to steal what you have. They're not out there to steal the watch off your wrist or the wallet out of your pocket. They're generally out there trying to look for help, but they're being turned down because they're looked at as thieves. And a big one is looked at like they're lawless, like they're just out there doing what they want to do and just living generally without any direction or laws. In the homeless community, there is laws within society's laws that are followed. You don't follow these rules, there are consequences. They're not like normal society's consequences, but they are consequences. I one time mistakenly called a woman a name I really should not have called her. And as a result of that, I was beaten by 15 guys. They circled around me and beat me. I had a concussion for 3 days. My rib was broken. It was the consequence of my action. And by those consequences, I learned to live within this new society's laws. Now, many of the reasons why people are homeless, coming out of jail is a big one, and having no direction. All they know is jail, and they know jail's laws and society's laws within that institution. So when they get out, they don't know how to live or pay bills for an apartment or how to get a job. And a lot of folks that have felonies can't get jobs. So they get stuck out on the street because they can't find employment. Myself, I had to find 1099 jobs. I'm not a felon, but because I was homeless, I had to find self-employment through a lot of construction companies that would take me without looking at my background. Now, 49% of Americans, general society, are all one paycheck away from homelessness. Where they lose their job, they'll last for 1 more week or 2 more weeks, and then they're out on the street. Another big one is mental illness, PTSD from whatever traumas they've experienced in their life, whether they were abused as a child, whether they have gone to war, whatever the trauma might be, that causes the mental illness. Depression is another big one, where people have gotten divorced, and that depression sets in so much that they just don't have a desire to go on any further, and they end up losing everything they have. So they end up out on the street. And depression was a big one for myself. The day before, 3 days before I went to college, I lost my goddaughter, who was 3 months old. She died in my arms. I was the only one in the house that knew CPR, and I attempted to save her life, and I couldn't. So I had that guilt from losing her, and I was depressed from it. And so that led to my further drug addiction during college, trying to bury that pain. And then you've got physical injuries or physical loss. I know a man that he lost his leg. He had some illness that he ended up losing his leg from knee down. And the medical bills just overwhelmed him. And he ended up out on the street while he was still recovering from that surgery. A big reason why the homeless get stuck is institutionalization. In sociology, institutionalization is the process of embedding some concept within an organization or social system, or as a society as a whole. The term also can be used to refer to committing a particular individual or group to an institution, such as mental or welfare institution. In this case, it's homelessness, which is the mindset that I'm still working to get out of. That institutionalization includes basic hygiene, caring for a home, paying bills, just functioning on a day-to-day. All of that I didn't care about or worry about for 16 years. So now it's a learning process for me to move out of this. It causes anxiety. Then you have the PTSD on top of it all. And there are still aspects of, if we can call it normal society, that still scare me. Being in a group of large, that scares me, because being out on the street, you're constantly vigilant and paying attention to the situations around you. It's a struggle for me to have somebody stand behind me. I'm worried that they're going to attack me. Even if it's somebody I love and care about, I still am scared of having them behind me. There's, like I said, the aspect of basic hygiene, showering every day. That's a novel idea to me. To be able to shower every day, I still forget on a regular basis to do so. It's not because I want to be stinky or dirty, it's because I never had this day to day. I had a period of time, it was 6 months, no change of clothes, no new socks, no shoes, and no shower. I stunk pretty horribly. It wasn't until I got over my fear of the shelter that I was able to actually take a shower. I was able to find some clean clothes. But it was, again, a few more months before I showered again, because I just wasn't used to it. The homeless get stuck in their hustle, in their everyday, trying to get the drugs, or, like I've said before, just trying to survive on a day-to-day. You wake up in the morning, your first thought isn't to enjoy the day, it's where's my next meal? Where's my fix for the day? How am I going to survive this day? Another big thing is the accessibility to services. For the example that comes to my mind is in Myrtle Beach. I was living down on the beach, and the soup kitchen was about 3 miles away. So now I have to pick up all my belongings, which are heavy. I'm already hungry. I'm already weak and tired from not eating for however long I've eaten. It's going to take me about an hour, hour and a half to walk to the soup kitchen. And now I'm at the soup kitchen, I eat. It takes me about 15 minutes, half an hour. Now I got to turn around and walk back. By the time I get back to my spot, I'm already hungry again. And I've also spent 3.5 hours out of the day that I could have been hustling for my drugs. I could have been hustling, trying to get material possessions that could help me survive that day or the next day. And there's not a lot of available resources right on hand. It's hard to get to some of these resources. It would help if we had mental health workers as well responding to 911 calls and more substance disorder counselors on hand, because times that I've called 911, they bring me to the hospital, but they look at me like I'm just crazy. I'm a drug addict. They don't want to help me. The last time I was at the hospital, they wanted to actually strap me down to the bed because I was talking crazy. I was in full psychosis. I was hallucinating. I was hearing things that weren't actually happening around me. So they wanted to strap me down and leave me there for 72 hours. I was having none of it. I ran from the hospital, and I ended up sleeping in a bush that night because I thought somebody was out to get me. And that was the best hiding place that I could come up with that night. And we also have a gap of employment and pay in that first paycheck. Because as being homeless, you don't want to start a job and have to work 2 weeks before you actually see any money. That's another reason for self-employment. It's because you can get paid that day, and you can get what you need for that day to survive. To try to go 2 weeks while breaking your back at a job and not focusing on survival, it creates a fear within a homeless person. You know, what am I going to do today? Because I've been busy working all day. I've not been focusing on my immediate needs. And another big one is a safe place to store belongings. Like I mentioned earlier, employers don't want to store your belongings. They stink half the time. There's too many belongings. When I was on the street this last time, I had a suitcase, a big laundry bag, and as every homeless person has, a backpack on my back. No employer is going to want to store any of that all day. So I have to either carry them with me, or I have to stay at my camp and guard them so that somebody else doesn't steal what I have. And I actually had a hiding spot for some of my belongings. I went back to that hiding spot. Somebody had found it. I lost all my clothes that day. I didn't have any more clothing because they decided they wanted it more than I needed it. Now, what some good people unintentionally do that can be offensive to the homeless is the assumptions that we talked about. Assuming that they're lazy, that they want to live this way, that they're dangerous. Because of those assumptions, people tend to shy away from the homeless. I've walked down the street and had people actually cross the street and go to the other side of the street to avoid me so that they didn't have to be near me, so I wouldn't ask them for a cigarette or money or anything. There was one time I did ask a woman for money for food, and I was genuinely being honest about it. She turned me down and told me, "Why don't you go get a job, you bum?" And called me a bum and doubted my reason. Now, it was part of the hustle that I was in, but because she turned me down for that food money, I turned around and I purposely dug in a trash can right next to her looking for food so that she would feel bad for me, and she ended up giving me some money for food that night. But that's just one of the many hustles or games that people do when they're homeless. Another big one is asking for gas money, saying my vehicle broke down the road. Can I get some money for gas? And turning around and going to use that money for drugs and alcohol. Now, not all homeless do that, but it does happen quite often. A lot of homeless will give sob stories just to tug at the heartstrings of somebody within a church or an individual, just to make them feel bad enough to help them. One girl that I knew out there, she was, as we call it, flying a sign or panhandling on a street corner. She said she was homeless with 3 children and that she needed money for food for her children. Now, she didn't have any children, but she still wrote that on her sign so that people would feel bad and think, oh, she's got children, I need to help the children. That wasn't the case for her. She was just trying to get money for heroin for her habit that day. But a big thing to remember is not all homeless are giving these sob stories just to get help. But like I said, it is a majority out there. It takes some discernment to understand and know which people are just trying to do this. And a good way to help with this is just if they said their vehicle is broken down the road, need gas, get a gas can full of gas, or walk with them to their vehicle and help them. That way you're not feeling like you're just supplying a drug addict, a drug habit. In a big way that can effectively help the homeless is providing a long and consistent relationship with them, and not just disappearing, because that the homeless already have trust issues. I know myself, it's hard for me to trust help. I've been with Shane and Latoya in their home now for about 2.5 weeks, and the trust is building, but I still am worried within myself, deep within myself, that this is going to be a short time, or if I upset them too much, that they're just going to kick me out. I've had places where I've stayed and I've been kicked out. I had one place, they claimed to be really good friends and they would never kick me out. We had a disagreement. Next thing I know, I had a gun in my face and being told to get out. Now, I wasn't quick to leave, and so I called 911 because I was in fear for my life. When they saw me do that, they reached for my phone. When they couldn't get a hold of it, because I had to shove it down my pants to keep it away from them, he started to choke me out, and I was actually starting to die by the time the police got there. Now, I was arrested that night for disorderly conduct because they sat there and lied to the police officers. So, and because I was homeless, because I was this subcategory of a human being, the police believed the person whose home I was in, and I was arrested for it. One other thing that I see is, I call it adopting a person in need. You find within your ministry to find that one person that you can connect with and adopt that person and just keep checking up on them. Try to give them a foundation to build off of. Don't build the home for them, just give them a foundation. Like Shane and Latoya have given me a foundation, and that foundation has helped me tremendously in being able to kind of take a deep breath and take a look at how my life has been and where I've come from. Because out on the street, like I said, it's a day-to-day hustle. There is no time to take a breath and try to figure out the next steps in bettering myself or bettering a life. Items that are given out to the homeless, full-size hygiene items. They're great, they help, but they're too bulky or heavy, and they're harder to carry. When you've got limited space, you really don't want these big bottles that you're just going to end up having stolen. You're going to end up losing them. You may not even need a full-size bottle of shampoo because, like I said, you're not bathing on a regular basis. Another thing that really are not good or not usable is one-time use items. A bottle of water is great, but to give a reusable water bottle, a hard plastic water bottle, is a bigger help than just this one-use water bottle that's going to end up being thrown away, which is going to accumulate trash. And if you're living in a tent city, it creates that trash that society in general does not want to see. And then that leads, again, to that stereotype of all homeless are just dirty and don't want to fix their situation because they look dirty, they smell dirty, their campsites are dirty, they don't care about themselves. That's not the case. There's a tent city that I know of that after 4 years they're being evicted They have their own government within the tent city. They've kept it clean, but the city won't take their trash. The city won't dispose of it for them, and there's no way to go to the dump because there is no city dump like here in Conway where you can go to the dump and dump your trash. So the city isn't taking it. So to reduce that trash, one-use items aren't very helpful. But items that the homeless can use are travel-size hygiene items. Travel-size shampoos, conditioners, body washes. Lotion is really helpful. Especially where the homeless are on their feet 90% of the time, wearing the same socks day in, day out. A homeless person's feet are usually very rugged because of all of the time spent on your feet or walking around with sweaty, smelly socks. Toothpaste and toothbrushes are helpful. Deodorant, mouthwash, cotton swabs. Cotton swabs is one thing that the homeless very rarely see. Those, I know quite a few, myself included, always wanted something just to clean my ears out. Because the times I did, it was kind of disgusting to clean my ears like after so many months. Tissues are a big thing too. Shaving cream, hair ties for the females, even males with long hair. Up until recently, I had long hair myself. I still carry a hair tie on my wrist, even though I have short hair now, because of that need of needing a hair tie on a constant basis. Nail clippers, or toenail clippers. Those are something the homeless don't see very often. And to share those amongst the homeless community just promotes disease. A lot of the homeless have Hep C from sharing dirty needles and things of that nature. So you don't want to share nail clippers, especially if you don't have Hep C or any of these other diseases. So that's something that is really needed. Flashlights, or even really inexpensive headlamps. Those are big things for the homeless. When you head to your campsites, it's usually at night, and usually your campsite is hidden out in the woods. So you want to be able to see while you're getting out there so you don't fall in a hole or anything of that nature. I had one night that I was trying to go to my campsite, and I fell in railroad trestles because there was a big hole covered by snow that I didn't see. So I didn't have a flashlight that night. I ended up spraining my ankle and my wrist because I fell in this hole. So there's a big danger with that. A journal or notebook and pens, those are helpful to be able to take notes for your job interviews if you are out searching for a job. Just being able to write down your thoughts while you're out on the street is a great release. To be able to get out of your own head, to be able to put it down on paper so you're not so busy just mulling over those thoughts. Chapstick is a big item too. Not just for your chapped lips, but for chapped knuckles, for your feet if you need it. Just something to protect yourself. Chapstick has so many different uses. I've made candles out of chapstick. For the females, feminine hygiene items. Those are so difficult for the females to get. There's so many women out there that have to use napkins or paper towels just to try to keep themselves clean. And that's just, I mean, I know most people feel it, but I myself feel that's not right for them to have to deal with those problems. But that also leads to the smell coming off of a homeless person, which that also leads to stereotypes that all homeless are just dirty and don't care. It's not that the females don't care, they just don't have access to these items. Razors are a thing that are very helpful. A lot of men don't shave their faces while they're out there, but the females do enjoy shaving their legs or trying to keep themselves clean. And cleanliness is just, it's a big thing for when you're homeless. When you take a shower, it's life-giving. I can't tell you how life-giving taking a shower can be. It uplifts the spirit. It just bolsters confidence. It enables you to go out there into society and feel comfortable. An item that a lot of folks don't hand out is I put camp silverware or reusable silverware, something that you can use on an everyday basis. I've had plenty of times where I've had a can of ravioli or SpaghettiOs, and I got to drink it out of the can because I have no silverware. But then I've also had times where I have a knife on me. I've eaten with the knife, or I've fashioned my own silverware out of a tree branch. Just make myself a temporary fork or a spoon, just so I can try to keep myself clean while I'm eating. Transportation cards could be helpful to the homeless to be able to get to resources, to be able to get to a job, because transportation is so hard. Like I said, you have to walk to the soup kitchen, which becomes a burden, which becomes difficult to do on a daily basis. Baby wipes or hygiene wipes. They now have, what do they call them, man wipes, which are flushable wipes. You know, trying not to be too gross about it, but I've had times gone out in the woods to use the bathroom, had no toilet paper. Well, this sock is halfway clean. I'm going to use that today. You know, and that's just not very hygienic in itself, but it's also degrading, and it just kind of puts the spirit way down. Baby powder is a good item that a lot of homeless don't get. Good to keep your feet dry. Good to keep yourself smelling somewhat clean. A first aid kit, even if it's a small travel first aid kit, it's a big thing out on the street, especially if you are in active addiction. I've seen so many people with abscesses, or they miss a shot in their arm and they end up with a big cyst on their arm, and they have no way to cover it, keep it clean. I've seen people with those cysts explode and they have no way to clean themselves or to keep it clean or to put antibiotic on it. You're left with water, and I've had to cut t-shirts apart just for a bandage. Sunscreen. That is one item the homeless don't see a lot of. Sunburns can cause sunstroke, dehydration. Sunburn bad enough will blister. And if you get those blisters on your arms, your back, your shoulders, you've just lost your way of carrying your belongings around with you. Or if you do just look past that pain, you end up, again, going back to the first aid kit, needing something to clean up the blisters that burst on your shoulders or on your body. And when you don't have that, it tends to lead to infections. For the winter time, hats, gloves, scarves are extremely helpful. I've seen plenty of people with frostbite. In Nashua, we had one older gentleman. He had gone in for dinner at the rescue mission that night. He didn't have a hat or gloves, or he didn't even have a winter coat that night. And that night it was below zero. He made it 1 block down the street and died from exposure. He had already had a day-long exposure to the cold, and that half an hour in the rescue mission was not enough to warm him up. And he walked down the street without the coat, and he ended up passing out and dying right there in the snowbank. One of the volunteers from the rescue mission found him. Cough drops. That's a big thing not seen on the street. When you've got a cold out on the street, it's usually not taken care of. You have to go without. Hand warmers and body warmers. Those are really big. prevent frostbite. Keep yourself warm. Body warmers. I've had nights where I've woken up under my pile of blankets and still been freezing cold. That body warmer, you put it against your chest and you put it under your blankets, it can warm you up enough that you're not freezing and you can go back to sleep. I've had times where I didn't have those body warmers, those hand warmers. At that time, my bed was 2 dress shirts stuffed full of leaves, and I was sleeping on a picnic table with 1 blanket in the wintertime. I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would dig for leaves, I'd make a small fire, and warm up my fingers and toes and go back to sleep. And I would have to repeat that process every couple hours just to try and survive the night. Winter socks are a big help. One item not usually seen on the street is can openers. At a lot of food pantries, you get canned foods, non-perishable foods, no way to open it. Some homeless, myself included, have learned how to open a can using a knife. That can be dangerous. I've almost cut my finger off once or twice doing that. But even a very inexpensive can opener would do wonders for a homeless person to be able to actually eat a meal instead of having to get all these pop-top containers. Some ways to get items or to give items to the homeless. Back in Pittsfield, New Hampshire, we had a truck once a month, which we needed it more than just once a month, but they would bring clothing to us. They would roll out all their clothing racks, and we'd be able to get clothing. Another way to help is laundry service. We had Laundry of Love in Pittsfield, New Hampshire. Again, it was only once a month, but they paid for our laundry. No matter how much it was, how much laundry we had, they washed everything that we had. And that's opposed to just giving money to the homeless to go do their laundry, or to give them laundry soap and expect that they do their laundry. Now, laundry soap is another item I didn't mention that could be helpful. I've had plenty of times to wash clothing in a sink or in a creek. One item I also didn't mention that is number one wanted item for a homeless person is socks. Socks are such a blessing. I've had plenty of winters where I was asked for Christmas, what do you want? I said, the only thing I want is socks. I don't care if it's 50 pairs of socks. I just want socks. Because, again, with not being able to wash your clothes, you wear socks for a week or two, you throw them away. You put on a new pair, you wear them for a week, you just toss them out. To prevent that tossing out, a laundry service helps with that. But they do tend to get thrown away. So inexpensive socks are a big help. Even if a ministry can go to the hospital and get them to donate socks, hospital socks are just fine. And bringing these items out to where the homeless are, not just having one location. We're going to be at Food Lion today. Whoever wants stuff. A lot of times that message isn't passed around the camps. So a lot of homeless folks miss out on these resources because there's just a disconnect between the information and them. So going out to bring them these items, in Concord, New Hampshire, the fire department would come around and check on us, and they would go from camp to camp. They were actually bringing us Narcan kits. I had once, I was in the middle of using, and the fire department had pulled up. I got scared I was going to jail, but they assured me, we're not here to arrest you, we're just here to make sure you're okay. And then they gave me the Narcan kit, which I never, thankfully, had to use myself, but I always carried one with me. Whether I needed it for myself or somebody else, because there's been times that somebody has overdosed around me, and I had no way to help them. in some states, you can get in trouble for bringing the authorities to that person that's overdosing, and there's times that folks end up dying. My friend, his name was Lake Monday. He passed away 6 years ago at a hotel party because there was no Narcan, because everybody at that party was afraid of helping. They took him outside, they put him behind the dumpster, and they walked away. And he was in the middle, he was still alive when they left him behind there. It wasn't until a housekeeper found him, passed away behind that dumpster that next morning, that he was actually found. Now, talking to a friend that I made on the streets and discussing this presentation with them, one creative way to help, and I don't know how feasible it is, but she mentioned an outdoor shower thing, such as a shower head coming out of a truck with a ring that hangs a curtain, so somebody, they change into their bathing suit, they take a shower right there next to the truck. Some way to get a shower out to somebody would be a big help. Another thing that I've seen done is winter items hung up on trees and fences scattered around town, so that while a homeless person is out doing their normal day-to-day activities, they find these items. Now, these items had tags on them around the message of, I'm not lost, I'm just looking for somebody that needs it. And so I know that has come in handy for myself, not being able to find a winter hat and walking around town and there's a knitted hat somebody made and they hung up in that tree for a homeless person to find. And that was just such a blessing to me, to be able to find such an item. Now, for myself personally, things that Christian folks or the church has done to help me, they've loved and accepted me for who I am and where I've come from. But, and I hate saying it, but not all churches are that way. A lot of times the homeless don't go to churches looking for help because the church rejects them, because they're homeless, because they're dirty, because they smell, because they ruin the image of that church, and they get turned away. And because that, Christ is not being heard by these folks. The church, Forward Church, has adopted me as Christ would, which has been amazing. Again, not all churches do that, but that has helped me tremendously to get to the point where I'm at, just by adopting me and loving on me and showing that genuine trust and care for me as a person, not for where I've come from, but who I am as a child of God. Another thing that has been done to help me is bless me with new clothing and items I needed. I showed up at church after the last relapse I had. All I had was what I was wearing and the stuff that I had in my backpack. Now I can say I've got enough clothes. My mind is blown at how many clothes I have. At the new shoes I'm wearing. Just the items that I've been given just further shows me Christ's love shown to people around me. Some things that I've learned from the street that has helped show me God's purpose. Now that I'm moving away from being homeless, it's shown me where I'm going and what I need to be doing. And it's, for me personally, becoming a minister to the homeless, the lost, and the broken. I myself want to start a church for the homeless, where it's not people with money, it's not people that the homeless don't trust, where it's a homeless person sitting next to a homeless person and hearing the Word of God where the drug addicts know that they're accepted, where the prostitutes know they're not going to be judged. Forward Church is great in accepting folks like that, but that word hasn't gotten out to the homeless communities. And I want to be able to get that word out, that there are churches like Forward Church that do accept us for who we are. Let's see, I think that's about all that I have. So, to give you guys some time, any questions that y'all might have for me? Good.
So you said you've been on the street for 16 years, right?
Mhm.
What finally convinced you to come off the street?
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was dying out there, but a big thing for me was that I already knew Christ, and I knew that Christ loved me. That I needed to get back to God to find my purpose in life, and finally finding a church that would accept me for who I am and has laid this foundation for me in order for me to grow and move beyond where I was at. It really was big in helping me.
You talked about building that foundation with one person, like picking one person. What's the best starting out place if I were to go up to a female, or if we would go up to a male, like someone that that we wanted to pray for and be there for and come see, like how would you approach that the first time?
Just showing that person that there's nothing to be ashamed of. Just showing them love and respect, even where they're at. I myself felt a lot of shame walking into the church. The first time I met Shane, I had my head down. I couldn't look him in the eye. I couldn't look anybody in the eye. But to generally just talk to that person and give them an ear to listen, that is something the homeless don't get a lot of. They're shunned and they're pushed away. And just showing them love by listening and asking them how they are and genuinely caring for their situation. And that one-on-one relationship I'm talking about is just giving, like you said, the foundation, but also reassuring them that you're there for them, possibly giving them your phone number, and if you don't feel comfortable giving them your phone number, there are internet text numbers out there that you can sign up for, and that person can contact you when they're in absolute need. And when they are in need, showing up for them and being there for them on that basis.
Like you said, not just bringing like the generic items are great, but also asking them like, what do you specifically need?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and not just handing them those things,
Right.
but helping them work for those items. Like,
Right.
if I needed a job and I told you, I just really need some employment so I can get an apartment. So now, a person could look up a bunch of jobs that are hiring for people with no experience or very little experience, writing down those phone numbers and working alongside that person to help them call, to help them know what to say to the employer, and just showing up in that way in order to help them get that job where you're not doing all the work, where they're learning to do this work themselves, and that it's not scary, that it's not too difficult to obtain.
I got a comment. You talk about the shower and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is another way around that you can do. You can take that homeless person, give them a membership at Planet Fitness for $10 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and they can go every day and shower.
Mm-hmm.
Planet Fitness does not work them out the door.
Mm-hmm.
All you gotta do is show them $10.
Mm-hmm.
They can go in there and work out, take a nice clean shower, and leave.
Mm-hmm. And that is a big thing that can help. I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Bringing that resource to them, because there's a disconnect between I guess as a ministry, you need to find a way to bring this $10 membership to them so that they know about it, and making it known amongst the community so that it can be a great resource.
Well, that's when you get, like you said, that's when you get a relationship with a one-on-one relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you build that relationship from there, and then you take it to the next level. How you feel what you can do for them.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, what is the beginning of homelessness? Does work train to the child, or that's what I don't understand.
Beginning of
I know sometimes it's situations in your life, but it's like you were in college and it seemed like you had yourself together, but you still ended up homeless. I don't understand the mental or whatever. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to think of how to
blame or
answer.
anything, but
No, it's
I don't know the mental thing that allows you to do that.
I was already homeless before I went to college. I went to college as a means to put a roof over my head.
So did your parents put you out of the house, or you never had parents? This is what I don't understand.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell your background real fast.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very strict home. I was also a pastor's kid before my parents divorced, but she remarried, and my stepfather was extremely strict. When I turned 18, I was visiting my girlfriend 3 hours away, and I didn't want to be in that strict household anymore. So one night, I got the quote-unquote good idea to pack my stuff, and I left my parents' home at 4:30 in the morning under the cover of darkness, and I took a bus, and I ended up in the city of Manchester, New Hampshire, with no forward thought of what am I going to do about a place to live, what am I going to do about food. I was not equipped to handle life's difficulties quite yet, and I just kind of jumped into it thinking I could handle it and I could figure it all out. And I ended up on the street because I had no clue the resources that were available to me to help me along the way. I had never paid a bill in my life. I had never had an apartment. I didn't allow my parents to show me these things, and they never did and they never showed me 100% of how to do these things. Their way of showing me money management when I was growing up was to hand me $20 out of my paycheck and keep the rest of the money, which they called rent. But when I left their house, I found out they had saved all that money for me, so I got a check for $6,000. At this point, again, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have responsibility for my finances, and I spent it on foolish things. I spent it a lot on drugs. I spent it on the girl I was dating. I spent very little on myself. What I did, I bought really nice shoes and really nice clothes and things that were useless to surviving as an adult. I didn't buy furniture or dishes or get an apartment, anything of that like that. And with the folks that deal with depression or PTSD or just loss of a job, you end up losing your home, you end up out on the street, and it becomes a struggle. Yeah, it becomes a cycle of you're just trying to survive and trying to figure it out. At some point, for a lot of the homeless, it becomes difficult to handle, and it becomes a struggle just to live day to day and then try to concentrate on the things that really do matter. So there's that disconnect between what matters and what you're doing to survive. And that's part of the institutionalization, where you start to live every day homeless. It becomes uncomfortable to live back in true society, so you just shy away from it, and you just don't deal with it as much as you really need to.
Anybody else have any questions?
How long are you going to stay in King County? How long do they allow you to stay?
It's a 12-month to 15-month program.
What happens after that?
That I'm honestly not sure. Right now, I'm reliant and trusting God that God will make and open the doors for me, and that I'll have opportunities when I get out. I do know they have the re-entry program, which is the last 3 months of your stay there at Teen Challenge. I'm not 100% sure what that looks like, but for me, right now in my life, I've made the conscious decision to rely on God's provision and to trust God. And God has not let me down, and I've been provided for. Things have been working the way that they should at this point. So when I leave Teen Challenge, I'm resting on that as well. That God will provide, and that there will be a way opened when I leave.
So in 12 months from hopefully Friday, we want to have you back and talk about the new person you are.
They don't allow visitors or nothing?
So. But we have before us someone who literally is a throwaway of society. The great news is God never throws anybody away. Standing beside me and in front of you is a prince, a son of the king. And the more that we grasp that idea, what our identity is in Christ, and know that when we reach out to the Ricks of the world, we let them know through not just our words but our actions. Listen, you don't realize it right now, but if you come into this family, the kingdom, your inheritance is you become no longer a pauper, but you are a prince, and your inheritance is great, and your ultimate destination is heaven. But the challenge for us is learning how to be the disciples that Christ called us to be, knowing what to say to the Ricks of the world. This was great. I've had a couple of weeks where me and Ricks just sit down. Just so you know, our conversations are not always pats on the back. I make Rick mad. Toya makes Rick mad because we challenge him. And he challenges our thinking. And we challenge his thinking. And that's the thing about being a disciple, is you cannot ever be afraid of making someone angry sharing Christ with them. Because they will get mad. But as long as you have the word and the truth on your side, and you're telling them what the word says, that word will not return void. You are breathing life into them. And it may take a little while before we start seeing the evidence of the life come to life in them. But standing before you today is a man who was homeless for 16 years. And he'll never be homeless again. I don't just say that on faith. Rick knows people. He's worked for people that went through Teen Challenge that own their own businesses now. There's people who went through Teen Challenge that are very wealthy now. But they were in a situation similar as Rick when they started. Teen Challenge is a great program. I'm excited that Rick gets to go. And I just hope this was a blessing for you and you've learned some things. Would you raise your... If you learned something tonight you didn't know about homeless people and something maybe jumped out at you, would you just raise your hand? That's everybody in here. And everybody in here has done ministry, some for years. And this is great. This is great. So, Rick, everybody right here, right now, believes in you. And we will keep praying for you. And keep believing for you. And keep trusting in God that in a year from now when you stand there, brother, God's got some great things in store for you. Thank you, everybody. Facebook, thank you. There's been some people that's been watching the whole time. But thank you. And I hope that this blessed your heart like it blessed our heart. I'm going to end this now. God bless you.